Welcome everyone to Autogefühl, your number one resource for in-depth car reviews and your number one community to discuss cars. Today with Thomas and the Peugeot 208 facelift. You always want to know our locations as well, and well, if you see it maybe in the background, very little is the Dome of Cologne. So we are right at the River Rhine next to Cologne, and this is a good spot here to present you the new 208 facelift. By the way, in Germany we say 208, so I also want to know of you, would you rather say 208 or 208? And of course we are going to present you the exterior, the interior and the driving, and also about all the changes this facelift now offers for you. So let's go! So some basic facts about the car. In Germany it starts at about 12,500 euros, which is actually a quite good deal. Here at higher trim level now with Allure, the top trim level, it's a little bit more expensive then of course, and you can also pick from different engines, more to the engines later on as well. As you see right now, we have a 5-door version that's 750 euros extra. There's also a 3-door version from the basic version available, but usually I would always go for the 5-door version because it offers you more flexibility. And I think it's also better in the value later on if you want to sell the car at some point again. So, and this generation of the Peugeot 208 is out since 2012, and now in end of 2014, beginning 2015, we got the facelift here now. In this color here, it has a matte surface, so that was, I think, prepared afterwards, but you can actually get it from serial production, and it's called Ice Velvet Matte. I think very attractive color because it's something different. There's also a completely new color available now for the facelift, and that is called Orange Power. You've maybe seen that color in some advertisement Peugeot has brought out, because they have been using this color then in here. So what else is different when you do a facelift? What do you have to change? Of course the headlight, because then you have something different with the car, and here in this case also the shape has been changed a little bit, but I am actually not too satisfied with it, because this kind of additional eye above here, I think it's not a real clear design. It's you know, a little bit too much. Or what's your opinion on that one? Then you see the basic shape of the car remained the same, that you have these round structures, also the bonnet, very round structure here in the front going up, and then, which is quite interesting, especially when you look from above, you see that the lower part of the car is actually a little bit put to the front in comparison to the hood. And to me that also looks a little bit strange, but maybe you have a different opinion on that one, so I also want to hear your thoughts about that. Looking at the side profile, I think it's good that they not only paid attention to the design there, but also kept this style with a kind of steep windows here, because they again offer you a lot of space on the inside then, and especially in this segment here, small car segment, you want to see more small cars, more affordable cars, and this one here, clearly small car segment, 3.96 in meters, so below 4 meters of length. So we're also delivering you more cars in this segment than now, and obviously this is also a more affordable car. I think I can always tell you right now, it's actually quite good in price performance. So that's the side profile here, and more changes to the rear, because also the taillights have been changed a little bit, and you already see it here. This is kind of a signature here for this car, that you carry out this side design light here into the rear lights. They are kind of catched by the rear lights. 16-inch alloys, by the way, here. This is from Series when you pick the Allure top trim level. But of course you can also go bigger if you, for example, pick the GT line, available for 1,200 euros extra. And then to the rear, I think these new lights with these tiger claws kind of have a nice 3D look. But in general you see the rear part is really for lovers of round structures at cars. And you know, there's always a discussion about, is something a man or a woman's car? And I leave that to you in the comments here, because usually some say, okay, if the car has more round structures and rather women love it. I'm not sure if it's maybe a too easy thought, but I want to hear your comments about that one here below. In general, you see this kind of, well, round ball structure has remained the same, and I think that's also differentiates this car, for example, to some other German manufacturers. Let's open the hatch. By the way, it's quite interesting that we got some green contrast here in this edition. We'll see later on how that really mixes with the interior. Now let's open. And you see, this is a basic small car trunk. It's actually, I think, quite of average, not too much, but also not too little space. I think they have used the space here they've got. And what is actually possible, well, we cannot flip it around here, but we have to go to the side of the doors, and then we can also flip the seats to make it a little bit more flexible. Press it down here, and you see we got this classic 1/3, 2/3 split. No even loading space, but it's somehow covered in here. But you know, sometimes these even loading space are just achieved by putting another layer on here, and that's maybe also not too effective. Then just to show you how it looks when this one is turned down as well. So that's all the space you got at the maximum. I think I've seen better space here in this class, but I think you get along with it when you just want to go for a small car. Let's open the hood, and quite of almost sharp edge here, I would say. Also no hydraulic dampers, but I mean in the small car segments that is still okay. We know this engine. If you've maybe recently seen the Citroën C4 Cactus EcoTour we did, this is a 1.6 liter diesel with 100 horsepower, HDi 100. Actually, it doesn't consume much fuel. More about that in our consumption tour here with the Cactus. You can also check out that video. You'll find it when you just search for it. And there are, of course, also other engines available. The diesel, for example, is also available with 120 horsepower, and it's basically the same diesel but just a bit more power. Definitely has enough power here for this small car. But you always have to think about, with such a small car, is a diesel really necessary? Because the petrol engines are also actually better for the environment, even if they consume a little bit more, because also with some particle filters, diesels tend to be less friendly for your stomach and for your breathing and so on. Well, about the petrol engines, they are available with different versions. It's about 1.0 liters, 1.2 liters, and the top one is 1.6 liters of displacement. And then the top version, then if you pick the GTI version, then also has above more than 200 horsepower, and that's really a lot of fun then actually with this car. But today, more about the usual version. We'll drive that one soon, and now let's jump to the interior. This is the key here, by the way. I think it's some solid work in general. Now let's get inside. Again, it really feels rough, this surface, but that creates this special look. Door handles, well, I've seen more solid ones. You see it also with this chrome style. I think I like this contrast here. Then the door itself feels actually quite light. The car itself is also still quite light. And if you take the first look at the interior, we see a lot of shiny dark elements. Allure top trim level is, by the way, 4,000 euros extra in price, but you can also see that it partially pays off. For example, also now the seats, full fabric, make a good impression from the surface here, and also quite nice that they have used white contrast stitches here, although we are in the fabric region. I really like that actually. And well, the signature part about this car is definitely the small steering wheel. Look at that small steering wheel. It's really a go-kart steering wheel. We know that already from the Peugeot 308. And that really creates a lot of fun in driving. And then what I immediately see here, I like that one. It's a special surface here. It's something different than just using plain plastic like on the inside of the doors or on the top part of the dashboard. Actually, I think they should use that one even more. For example, if you just think about if it would be here even at the inside of the doors, that would be actually quite great. But, well, they didn't do it, but maybe next time when they've watched Autogefühl and thought about, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. So now after I've taken the seat, actually, you know, I'm 1.86 m. Small car segment is always a little bit a problem for me because I'm most of the time too tall for the cars. The best one I think was so far the Audi S1 for that one, also with the seats. Here also for tall people you see the seats are really not where I can put up the head restraint, yes, but in general a lot of space in front of my knees. But so far with driving I didn't really feel uncomfortable, so this was actually quite okay. What I really love about the car, I can stress it again, is this small steering wheel. And especially in combination with this very light car, the small car, it really feels like a go-kart, even more than the bigger brother, the 308 from the compact segment. That's really great. What is visually not that attractive, I think, is that the instruments are kind of separated from everything else. That just feels like it. At least they turn in the right direction. You may remember that the 308 instruments, that they go like this, and not both from left to the right. That was quite disturbing, but here it's actually the right direction. What have they changed in the face of it? Of course, always the multimedia system. And I have mixed feelings about that. This knob here is actually quite cheap from production. Also the buttons don't feel too good, but at least the reaction times are quite okay, also when loading the GPS. You can't really use it like an iPhone or iPad style. You have to use plus and minus here over these ones here. I would say it's an average system, nothing less and nothing more. We connect a Samsung phone to that one, that actually worked quite well, and then we can go over, yeah, maybe I have to put that one out here. Yeah, now it works. SRC is for source. Then also Bluetooth would appear here, but you know we always shut down our phones and we don't get interferences with the sound. When you go at the lower part here, you see this has also been restyled, and well, these buttons here actually are also quite average here. This one here is to control the temperature, press it up or higher. It's actually also a quite nice idea then for this one, and actually everything is quite clear what is doing what. And this great structure is really carried out over the whole interior here from the left to the right. I really love that style. They should really have used more about that. If you look at the inside of the doors, I'm also a little bit mixed about that, because see here, this one here, this, and next to the mirror, I think it's a little bit too much, again, too much design lines. They didn't really decide which style are we going for, and think they've used too many lines here, so I would rather prefer a rather calm, clear design in that case. So these ones were my thoughts to the front of the interior. Maybe we can check out the spaces. Yeah, it's sliding down slowly. For the glove box, also quite a lot of space for a small car. At the inside of the doors, we have also some space. Then if we go to the middle part, we can put some beverages in here. Also, when we spill something, we can get it out. It's also easily cleanable. 12-volt supply, you want to see that always now. 12-volt supply here, next to a USB port and some very small space. This is actually nothing. And then just right below here, we get another beverage holder. So we can actually put 4 beverages in here. And today, with about 30 degrees and sunshine, that would actually be a very good idea. And about sunshine, we do have an optionally panoramic roof in here. The system for the shade actually is very good to have a shade. You know, in the Cactus we didn't have one. It was getting quite hot here. Well, the beginning of the shade here is actually quite cheap, but then I don't care if it's not electric, because everything which is electric can also be broken at sometimes. So I think it's quite a good solution that they have a manual solution in here. And then we can let the sunshine in. Of course, today it's maybe not the best idea because it's getting quite hot. But also nice panoramic roof here that you have a lot of light in the interior. However, I would always prefer a panoramic roof that you can also open. So I would rather, if you can pick between this, well, with the Lexus NX, you could actually pick between the whole panoramic roof, which you cannot open, and a smaller glass roof, which you can open. I would always go for that one that you can open, but that's maybe some convertible fan feeling. What about your thoughts about that one? So, and then this is the way how to close it again. Well, if you have to reach here, be behind that. That's actually not that kind of practical. But besides that, as I said, I'm really fine by manually using that one. And a very short excursion here inside the basement garage, because there when it's dark you can see the ambient light, which is beautifully executed here in this case in blue. Well, it doesn't really match the green elements on the outside of the vehicle, but I really prefer that blue color here, and especially I think it's good that it's at the side of the panoramic roof. Creates a very nice atmosphere here when it's dark. Let's check out the rear compartment, and here you see again it's actually quite a funny system here. Also how they put the shape here. You see, I'm not sure what they thought about it, but let's take it that way. It's different. Then about the sound, I'm not so sure about that one. That really sounds weird a little bit, but that is also about the details I'm always paying attention to. Some might say, okay, I don't care, but for all those who do care how that sounds, I've shown you now. Then let's get inside here. I've put the seat as I would be driving, and you see, wow, not really possible to sit here for me. Then I would ask the driver, could you please put the seat more in the front? Then it's maybe possible. Also just from the headspace, because we have the panoramic roof here, it's really not enough. So for tall people here in the rear compartment, no way, guys. There are actually some small cars that also follow these design lines and have reduced space in the back, as for example the Mazda 2. However, there are also other cars, maybe if you think about the Volkswagen Polo, some say, oh, very boring on the outside for the basic shape. But these rather boring shapes, especially in the rear, have the advantage then that they have more headspace especially, and more space in general. You really have to think about it, how many people are using the car and at the same time or not at the same time, and how important is the design for me, and then find the right compromise. And of course, by all these car reviews, we've shown you already a lot of small cars, and you can really decide what's the best pick for you. So in general, I can say I cannot really sit here, so I also can't tell you anything about being comfortable or not. It's definitely not comfortable for me, but maybe you can give me a feedback about that. We feel a little bit smaller than how you feel here in the back part of your 208. And by the way, for the rear window, it's that classic stuff here. I'm not so sure, I wouldn't really criticize it, because if you think about it, how many times do you have people here in the small car in the rear, and how many times would they open the window? And then they could still do it, and it doesn't use any energy, so also no effect on the consumption, and which is not really electric, cannot really brake that easily. So I think it's quite okay that they have this solution there. So everyone, let's go driving. And we're starting at some rough terrain, so we can already test that one. And also about the turning circle. Actually no problem with this car, because it's obviously got that short wheelbase. That's really good to control then. So we got the diesel here, 100 horsepower. Already feel now that's really way enough for the car. And the first impression you get when you drive the car is really, again, the same with the small steering wheel. It's just fun on the first kilometers already. That is really good stuff. And I can also show you that right now. What I find quite amazing is that the steering is that direct. It's almost like in a sports car, so you don't really have a dead zone here with the like angles from -5 to +5 degrees. Really a great direct input to the steering wheel. I'm quite surprised by that, and that really makes a lot of fun, and also helps you when you're just turning around, even if you don't want to drive that sporty. Also the shifting is quite of direct and quite short shifting ways. And well, about the sound insulation, we won't go on the motorway with the car today. It's also not that actually necessary with the small car segment. I think I've heard better sound insulation, but here in the city it's perfectly fine, I think. So the brakes also have good feeling that you can adjust it quite well. You know, that also differs from car to car, how you really feel it. Also from the clutch experience here, you can very well control it. Sometimes we have cars where you have manual shifting and the clutch comes very late or too early. Here I think it's perfectly in the standard setting in here. And it's really kind of different driving this car here than other cars in the small segment, and it is really due to this go-kart feeling with a small steering wheel. And so I would really say, although it doesn't make the impression from the outside, and also Peugeot is not really famous for it, it is really a driver's car, and just from the feeling, actually a quite of sporty pick. So if you then combine it maybe with the GTI version, then you have really some cannon there in the small car segment. By the way, I've criticized with the Mazda CX-5 lately. Behind the steering wheel, we got some sharp edges again here, and there are some French or Japanese manufacturers don't really pay attention to it, but that's, I think, quite important. Not every detail is really important. Maybe it's sometimes just for the information, but these edges here behind the steering wheel actually are quite important, I think. In general, I really love that steering wheel, and I could really go maybe right or left now and to a go-kart track and have some rounds on there. That's actually quite funny. Although we have this sporty feeling just from the steering wheel, the general seating position is relatively upright, and that also corresponds to what I've told you earlier from the outside with the windows. We've kind of straight windows, and that gives me a lot of space and overview also to the side. So the overview is really very good, although we have these round structures here on the outside. That's, I think, quite feasible, and same is for the rear passengers. So even if you don't have too much space in the rear, it makes at least the impression of having a lot of space, because you have so much space out of glass in here, especially now as we also have the panoramic roof. That creates the feeling of space, and the space offering for the front passengers, I must say, is actually quite good. You hear the diesel, and same as, by the way, with the petrol engine. If you turn up the RPMs, the sound is actually also quite nice. So this adds more to this kind of sporty feeling. Controlling the GPS while driving is not the best idea because of the stuff earlier. It's not the most intuitive one, and so they could improve the system a little bit more. That would actually be quite good. So what else can we test? For example, if we want to overtake someone or just change lanes, lower gear now, putting down the throttle. Yeah, this diesel is really enough for the car. You don't really need the 120 horsepower version. Although I would generally maybe recommend the petrol engines as we in the small car segment. And usually the small cars are also not driven that long ways on the motorway. And then the petrol engine is usually also way enough. So now we're going faster. First gear now, around the corner. Yeah, it's actually a lot of fun. Really small, fun car. That's, I think, the driving conclusion. And I didn't really expect it at the first time, but as we're coming towards our final conclusion, this car is really the strength here with the driving, with the sporty driving, with the small steering wheel and the kind of direct steering. So let me conclude about the Peugeot 208 facelift. Actually, just from the exterior, it rather remained the same, not so many changes. I think what they've done from the styling doesn't really change that much, also from the basic layout. And I'm not that keen actually on these round structures, but maybe that's different with your opinion. Then from the interior, I think it's very great with this small steering wheel that creates this go-kart feeling. Also just visually attractive already, and they've also used some kind of interesting materials. They updated with the multimedia system is surely a good step, but of course the multimedia system could even be better. A little disappointment in the rear department because we had really hardly any space in there. But then again, you have to think about what's the main purpose for this car. It's in a small car segment for the city, and there the big advantage of this car is really together with the small steering wheel, this very direct steering. I was really surprised of that. And with this really short length, it was a lot of fun to drive it. So this is really also a driver's car, I must say. You really have this funny go-kart feeling, and that really helps you in your everyday driving, because if you just commute to work or maybe to university or whatever, then you still can have a lot of fun just on your everyday ways. And I think this is the big strength of the car, really the driving aspect of it. And I was actually quite surprised by that. So, and about the price, I think it's still a quite good price-performance ratio. And if you want to have something that is not quite boring than other small segment cars, but with some French attitude here, I think then it's the right pick for you. So looking forward to your feedback on the car, of course, in our video as always. Really great that you tuned in on Autogefühl again, and I hope I'll also see you at the next Autogefühl episode. Thanks everybody, and bye.